morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone, wherever you may be tuning in today's episode from around the globe. We are back in the US of A for the 2025 ARA Show here in the famous city of Las Vegas. I'd like to firstly pass on my thanks and gratitude to Mark Simonson for our continued partnership in this amazing opportunity to capture more unparalleled stories, experiences, valuable insights from some absolute rental icons, legends, leaders, and drive education for the global rental community. This is episode number 1 of our 2025 ARA Show campaign, and what a way to kick off. The king of sales, selling, and influence, an international social media icon, seasoned sales veteran, and master of sales training. Joining the equipment rental industry in 2003 with United Rentals, to Ahern Rentals, to now forging his own path, starting his own sales training enterprise with an unbelievable entrepreneurial drive and dedicated to molding, shaping, and the professional development of sales reps in the rental industry. Being described as truly authentic, paired with an immense level of creativity. A situational chameleon with an ability to sell anyone, from the construction worker to a boardroom full of executives. A barbecue connoisseur, koi pond savant, and specialist in the art of persuasion, communication, sales negotiation, and some say the most groomed beard in the rental industry. Elliot, you're in the hot seat for episode number 1. Welcome to the Rental Journal.
Michael, thank you so much, man. Wow. I've had some great introductions. That one blows my mind. Thank you, brother. I appreciate it tremendously. Thanks for having me.
Now, Elliot, we've tried to start this episode, but had some interesting nuances with the AC above us making some noise. So we're starting now. And before we dive in, and I refuse to give up my source, but we were talking about koi ponds.
Yes.
You're quite the figurehead in the rental industry, but it seems like koi is your actual forte, and even being in a koi pond commercial.
Absolutely. Thank you, Michael. It's funny how the world gives you the things that just fall in your lap. So I bought a house, and we had a little, I don't know what you want to call it, a little pond that had gone feral. My wife wanted me to dump it or do something with it, so I went out and cleaned it all up, took her toothbrush, gave it a great scrub, and after I scrubbed it all up, I put her toothbrush back, we filled it up with water, and it worked great. And all of a sudden, as I put water into it, my wife said, we need to put some fish in it. I bought fish, put them in there, and my wife says, do you know anything about taking care of fish? I said, I don't. She said, we should probably figure that out. And I got onto YouTube, as we all do, and I went down a rabbit hole that literally led me in 2022 traveling to Niigata and Ojiya, Japan to buy koi fish. It's crazy where the world will send you if you're just open to learn.
More importantly, did the toothbrush get replaced?
No, I put it back though. I mean, it was just pond water. I mean, what bad could come, right?
That's right. No issue at all.
No, I'm sure she's done things to my toothbrush, so it's all good.
She definitely would have after that. So.
We're still married, so she hasn't figured it out.
Elliot, leading up to today's episode, I really took a deep dive into your content and found some common themes and consistencies to your approach. And something that you recently shared is what you described as the 7 secrets to mastering the art of influence, which I think perfectly encapsulates your content, and would love to use it as the foundation for today's conversation. So, Elliott Vigil's 7 secrets to mastering the art of influence. Speak their why. Tapping into someone's emotional drivers is key. Connect your message to their values, goals, and aspirations.
That's right.
The power of reciprocity. Offer value up front, provide helpful information, and genuinely support others. Focus on building trust. People are more open to ideas from those they believe in. Demonstrate your expertise. Be transparent in your communication and commitments. The power of storytelling. Stories capture attention, memorably convey complex ideas. Use anecdotes, case studies, and personal experiences. Master the art of active listening. Truly listen to understand the person's needs and concerns. Show and earn respect to create a space for genuine connection.
That's right.
Become a master communicator. Maintain good eye contact. Project confidence. Speak with clarity and enthusiasm. Understand your audience. Conduct thorough research. Understand their viewpoints and values. Elliot, reflecting on these 7 statements, what does this mean to you? Why are these metrics so important to you as a salesperson and so vital in the rental industry?
Thank you, Michael. It's interesting because I don't see these as just being the rental industry or just being sales. I think these are life. And if you want to know how to really resonate with people, sit down and often ask, which is what we all want to know. What's your intention? You and I have had amazing conversations where we talk about why you do your podcast and why you care so much about the rental industry and the experiences you get. That's your why. It's why you travel all the way across the ocean. It's why you sit here in a room where we couldn't hear each other earlier, and you're that dedicated. It's because you have a big enough why. And when you have a big enough why, you can leverage anything. And I think it's a big one is that when you sit down, if you know your employees, I assume that there's a lot of business owners or managers that listen. If you sit there and you say, I want to know what your why is. I want to give to you. I want to build trust with you. I remember during the 2008 global collapse, I lost my house. I lived here in Las Vegas. The economy collapsed. I lost my house. And when I went back, I bought a house and we had to do some real big renovations because the house was trash. I didn't have a lot of money. And my boss said, what do you do every day? I said, what do you mean? I'm out of the door. I go to the gym. I'm doing sales calls by 6 a.m. He said, yep. And he said, and? I said, I don't wrap up until 4 or 5 o'clock. I said, I normally grab something to eat and I head to my house because I got to do renovations. And he says, you know, the company filed for bankruptcy, but I want to give you something. He knew my why. Generosity, reciprocity, to give. He said, I want to give you this $100 gift card to a hardware store to help fix your house. It built trust because he trusted that I was working as hard as I could every day and I was working as hard as I could after hours. And it's funny because as you go down this, guess what I'm doing right now? Which is number 4 on there, telling a great story. And every single one of these, if you know what gets people to go, you can connect with them at an amazing level. Too many rental companies come in and they focus on the rate and they never tell the story. If you sit down and you watch any of the big auto auctions, I'm not even an auto auction guy. You watch one of those and they tell the story of how it was found in a barn out in the middle of nowhere. And you're like, oh my gosh, I'm in love with the story. People will buy a story almost more than they will buy a product. So you really need to make sure that you communicate that with people and communicate with your team. I love this formula and it resonates with me every day.
Amazing, Elliot. Mate, prior to today's episode, I actually reached out to a good friend of yours and the world famous Josh Nickel.
I love Josh. He's great.
Having an amazing conversation on his perspective on your impact on the rental community. He said that Elliot isn't just an exceptional salesperson. He's literally and truly always selling. Wherever he is, talking to a contractor, talking to a rental company, or even at a barbecue joint, he's always selling. But he's also truly authentic in the questions he's asking, the comments he is making, to the feedback he is giving. Pairing this with a sense of creativity and perfect mix of marketing and personality. Elliot, diving into your background, originally studying at CSU, go Rams.
Go Rams.
Starting with United Rentals in 2003, experiencing the multi-billion-dollar Las Vegas construction boom, moving back to Colorado after the GFC with Ahern to regionally leading the company, becoming the top revenue-producing sales rep nationally in 4 years and developed over 700 Ahern sales reps. And in 2023, starting your own venture. Yes, Elliot, sir. What a journey.
Absolutely, Michael. That's the perfect word. What a journey. Like, I don't even know what to say after that. You know, you sit back and you look at your own life and you have a moment of reflection. And I wouldn't trade it for anything. At the moments when you watch the global economy crash and you're in Las Vegas, if anybody wants to look back at 2008, the 3 markets in the United States that were hardest hit was Las Vegas, Scottsdale, Arizona, and Miami, Florida. And those 3 markets took absolutely catastrophic impact of the market. And being here in Las Vegas, I'll tell you right now, at the moment, it was almost more than my wife and I could stand. It was more than our bank account could stand. But I wouldn't trade it for anything because I learned lessons that I now get to share to help other people avoid those mistakes.
Absolutely. So what sparked this drive to starting your own business after leaving Ahern?
It was an accident. It was 100% an accident. When United Rentals bought Ahern, I realized I may or may not have a job. And the crazy thing is United Rentals told me, we got to see if we can find a spot for you. We're not sure how this is going to go. Stay at home. Now, when people tell you to stay at home, that's never a good sign. And I stayed at home for a little bit. And my wife said, do you think they're going to give you a job? I said, I don't. And I got quickly bored, started reaching out to companies. Hey, are you looking to hire somebody? Are you looking out to hire somebody? And I had time on my hands, but I needed to work because I love the industry. And I started making YouTube videos for no other reason than I like to help. I didn't have an audience. I didn't have a following. I didn't have any reason. Just put it out there and see what happens. My third video got 100,000 views. I was like, wow, that's pretty interesting. I don't know what to do with that. And when I got it, and I got the 100,000 views, my phone rang. Boy, you're a hard guy to find. How can we get you to come down and talk sales to our company? And before I knew it, I had a following. And that following turned from 1,000 people on LinkedIn to now almost 12,000 people on LinkedIn. And it happened in 2 years, like just took off. And the rental industry, as you know, is very niche. And it's a small community, but it's a big community that's really well networked. And all of a sudden, I realized the industry, and it's not me, the industry needs people like you, like me, to be the voice of what we're all thinking. The industry can often be very lonely. Sales reps in their truck, rental owners, where you wake up every day, you unlock the doors, you work your butt off, you lock it back up and you go home, and you wonder, is anyone else seeing how much effort it takes to run a rental yard? And that loneliness, I realized that you and me, Michael, we both do the same thing on just different continents. Take care of people and let them know they're not alone. And I think that's critical. I don't think I have any special message or special sauce. I think I let a lot of people know when they're sitting in their truck or sitting at their branch, there's other people that are doing just what they're doing.
Absolutely, and if I was your wife, I wouldn't want you sitting at home too much longer. I'd be worried about my toothbrush. But Elliot,
oh my gosh,
Elliot, from my perspective, and something that we've just been discussing before sitting down, is there's such a conflicting push and pull relationship with the increase of artificial intelligence and data against the increasing need for personal relationships in the rental industry. In one of your recent ARA articles, you said that the integration of AI technology, which I used in writing this article, has revolutionized the way companies operate, especially in sales departments. By leveraging AI tools effectively, companies can streamline sales processes, improve sales performance, improve and optimize customer engagement, and most importantly, drive revenue. AI works just like real life. If you want better answers, ask better questions. Elliot, how have you seen technology over the past 20 years impact the sales process, for better or for worse? And what does the future of sales and the future sales environment look like with this continued increase in technology?
That is a whopper of a question. Like, phenomenal question, and I mean that. The reason why is because today at the ARA, we got to listen to a contractor panel, construction guys. They're not in the rental industry. They sat up there and they told their honest opinion about what they think about rental companies. Got it? Okay. And their honest opinion about what they thought about rental companies. And the biggest thing that they said, one of the guys said, he goes, I'm tired of sales reps coming into my office and saying, let me show you this app. Because I don't want to know about your app. Your app does not show me that you care. Your app is not a relationship. Your app is not going to make my business better. And when they said that, you could see all these people sitting in this room, over 450 people, and all of them own rental companies, and they all went, wow, like I'm getting approached and people are wanting to sell me all this software, and it's not the software. People still want to do business with people. So my opinion, two-part question. I think if you're not using AI to ask better questions, you're a fool. AI right now is cutting all the shortcuts out. Used to be when we got on just a few years ago, before 2022, is that if you asked Google, hey Google, who is the biggest rental company in the world? The first 5 things that came up were sponsored ads in Google. And it was all search engine optimization. And the problem is you had to sift through the minutia to find out what you were looking for. And sometimes you never found it. So we gave up too early. Now you see that with AI, you ask great questions, you get great answers. And I think that that's a key thing. They're actually teaching a lot of classes right now on just how to interact with AI. And when I sit down and I look at business, I think salespeople, I think organizations, what are you doing to ask it how to optimize your process? And I'll give you a quick one right now. As we sit here, whatever kind of phone you have, every phone has a map app in it. And I tell people, open up your map app, and within your map app, I want you to do one thing. I want you to just go to the little search engine and type in there, electrical commercial contractor. And when you do that, what will end up happening is it will do electrical contractor search by me. There's a map with all of the electrical contractors within 2 miles of our current location. That's technology we didn't have 20 years ago. And if you as a company, I don't care if you have outside sales reps or not, are you looking at opportunities that are just down the street from your branch that you could swing by and see during your lunch hour? Could you send one of your rental coordinators, hey, go down and see this company. They're less than 2 blocks away and they're not renting from us. And I think too many companies aren't doing that. At the exact same time, I had an opportunity when I started in the industry of watching the value of a rental coordinator. Somebody called in, they needed a piece of equipment. They said, what are my chances of getting a forklift, a telehandler? And the rental coordinator said, you got 2 chances, slim and none. And he started laughing. And the contractor on the other end said, not a problem, forget about it, and he hung up. And I realized the value of genuinely caring for our customers, which is where that personal side comes in, the second part of your question. I think you need the technology to streamline the process. Every one of us now understands the value of a Keurig for making fast coffee. You got to do that to get rid of the stuff that's wasting time. But if you're not optimizing, if you get more time in your day, I want you to ask yourself one key question. How should I spend it? If I gave you an extra 3 hours because the orders go in faster, the customer can use the portal. If I give you 3 hours in your day, are you spending it on TikTok? Or are you spending it connecting with our customers? Are you spending it teaching how to better use the equipment? Are you helping our customers and make a deeper connection? Or are you taking the time that you've saved to frivolously waste on an app that gives you nothing? And I think that that's why it's critical right now that we're dying for personal connection. If you don't believe me, not to get into any of it, but if you look at what happened during COVID, when people took people away from each other, alcoholism went up, drugs went up, suicide, everything went negative when we don't get to be together. So I would encourage everybody, connect with your customers, and the panel said it today. They want to do business. They want relationships with their salespeople. They want relationships with their companies that they do business with. They don't want to just be a number. They want to matter. And it's something I believed, but today when you see a panel from all over the United States, from a little tiny company here in Las Vegas to a big giant company that covers 5 different states, and the number one thing they said that they value, more than rebates, more than quality of the equipment, was relationships.
So it's not how to enhance technology, but how technology is going to enhance our lives should be the focus.
Absolutely. And we all know it. Like right now, you're doing it, I'm doing it. We're like, I don't know if AI is a good thing, man. I mean, like, it's scary how good it is. But I remember when I was a little boy, I went to my grandfather's house, my great-grandfather's house. And he had a coal and wood stove, a metal stove. And in the morning, he got up and he went over and he put wood in it, and he put coal in it, and he threw in a newspaper with a match. 30 minutes later, he put a kettle on this stove. 20 minutes later, the kettle, and he pulled the water off, and he poured it in through his coffee pot, and he made himself a cup of coffee. And I realized it took him an hour to have a cup of coffee that now my Keurig does in 3 minutes. But I think that the technology is wonderful, but you can't miss the fact it was still great to have a cup of coffee with my grandfather. No matter how long it took to make, it was good to spend time with people that you care for. And we all need to connect. We're still a community, and we're still a culture. And people don't want to just buy stuff completely online. I mean, they do when it doesn't matter, but nobody wants to have a cup of coffee without somebody. They want to connect.
That's amazing perspective, Elliot. You recently mentioned that you're seeing an industry shift, that sales reps are having to go back to hunting for sales. That nationally you've seen some sales teams achieve 10 to 25% growth, although others are down 10 to 15% in sales numbers. That this industry shift is due to the decreased supply demand comparatively to the COVID-19 boom years and poor sales leadership. Something interesting that you also mentioned is that from your perspective, rental companies over-purchase fleet by at least 10% in the COVID period. So, Elliot, now moving into 2025 with a forecasted 5 to 6% industry growth means that US realistically won't see a balance of fleet utilization to meet the new demand until mid-2026. So, you've said that underdeveloped sales teams can only sell on reduced rates due to not having the required skills to provide value. And something that I love that Steve Durrani mentions in his book Unlimited Success on Rental Sales that he published with Herc is that you can cut sales all over town, but that's not selling, that's selling out. Elliot, what has this industry shift been like over the past months?
Wow. You got good. I love somebody who's real research. Thank you, Michael. It's crazy because as I go out and I spend time with all these different companies, I have a limited perspective until I went up to Toronto, until I went up to Vancouver, Ottawa, until I went down to El Paso, Texas, California, Alaska, Hawaii, and all over the United States. And as I started doing it, I realized I was getting an education. I was there to coach and teach, and I was the one getting coached and taught. And I realized that the market, as you so eloquently put it, they looked at, my wife should never take me to the grocery store when I'm hungry because we will over-purchase the amount of groceries we need. She's like, do we really need 2 of those? I'm like, absolutely, we need 2 because I haven't eaten dinner, so I throw too much in the cart. And it's a simple analogy, but when rental companies saw COVID and then 2021, 2022, a lot of people were stuck at home. So the homeowner projects went through the roof globally. I mean, everybody saw it. And all of a sudden you see this trend of everybody did home projects. I think it's awesome. They found a way to connect. They found a way to rebuild their homes. I loved it. That surge in construction was hard to handle because the rental companies did not buy equipment in 2020. So there was not enough supply for the amount of demand. And when this went on in 2021, 2022, all of a sudden, companies were placing orders, and the global market for rubber, the global market for microchips, the global market for everything wasn't producing because of COVID. So there was a reduction in the amount of fleet being produced, and all of a sudden there was a gap, a deficit. So all the companies out there said, we got to buy. And they went to a show, like this show here, and they walked in and they said, hey, I need to buy 5 skid steers. And they said, perfect. You know, we got a deal if you buy 7. Perfect. You know what? I'll take 7. You know what? Give me 8. And they overpurchased. They realistically needed 4. They were willing to settle on 5. And then all of a sudden they surged up to 8. Now, it would have been fine if 1 or 2 rental companies did that. But everybody did it. So what has happened is now there's a shift. I don't know if you follow a gentleman by the name of Mr. Peterson. So hold on. Peterson. Oh, crud.
That's right. We'll just do a cut there.
That's right. So there's a gentleman who just put out an article here recently, and the article basically stated that post-COVID, disengagement is one of the number one things that companies are finding. And the worst thing is get disengagement, which means quiet quitting. I don't know if you've heard that phrase of quiet quitting. It means that you work for a company, but you're just not engaged. You're not working. And so post-COVID, they started finding that there's an increase in quiet quitting. People are putting out less effort. Now, I try to do an analysis of how is this affecting the rental industry. And I realized that many of us, I will only speak for myself, there was so much business during 2021, 2022 that you didn't have to go find it. If you had it and it was sitting in your rental yard, your phone rang. And then, even if somebody did call up, it didn't matter if you wanted to go out and sell or go hustle. We didn't have the fleet to even fill the orders. Now the yards are full, and the problem is for 4 years, COVID, the 2 to 3 years after, now that we've got the fleet, people have actually forgot how to go out and do what got them to where they're at, which is that hunting thing that you mentioned. I think not enough companies actually realize, and it doesn't matter if you have a sales force or not. Are you using social media? Are you using amazing opportunities to reach out to companies to really build your brand? And are you connecting to your communities? Are you connecting to general contractors? And, I think if you don't care about them, it's going to be difficult to survive, that there's too much equipment in the market. And anytime there's too much, one of two things is going to happen. You're going to either go hustle for your market share, or you're going to complain that somebody took your market share. But those two things are happening right now, and it's going to be a big impact on the market. Huge.
Elliot, with the increasing costs of finding, onboarding, and retaining salespeople, how can rental companies to owners and managers identify good salespeople? Is there such a thing as a naturally born salesperson? And what's your personal litmus test, having onboarded so many of these individuals, and to identify these people? Is it as simple as the Wolf of Wall Street, sell me this pen approach?
Wow. Smart podcast. So I do have a litmus test, and I have an interesting one. It's kind of a warped one. So I sat there, and as I went out and I talked to sales reps, I found trends. And there's two things that make somebody really successful in outside sales within the rental industry. Are they 100%? Nothing's 100%. But I found people that are athletes. And what I mean by that is they were either an athlete in high school or college, and most of the time they did years of sports. And here's why. As you go through, anybody who's a collegiate athlete, it's very rare that somebody has one coach their entire career. You get a coach when you're younger, you get a coach in your mid, sometimes you get a different coach every year. If you look at the NFL, or if you look at rugby, or you look at anything, the coaches change. Some coaches are good, some coaches are bad, but guess what? As a player, the coach matters less than the quality of the player who shows up to the team. You must be coachable. Great salespeople got to be coachable. They can't say, the way I've done it is the way I'll always do it. You got to be coachable. Here's the other thing. Great athletes have the discipline to show up every day. If you're out playing football, you got up every day and you had to make it happen. And the players that didn't put in a full day's effort didn't make the cut. Not only that, but you had to be competitive. Here's the other thing. The season is longer than one game. How many times do you lose a deal? Somebody walks in and the sales rep or the company says, man, we landed this great contract with the power plant. And then your phone rings. And you say, hey, we've got all that equipment. Can we get it down to your site? And the guy says, oh, I went with somebody else. He was 3 or 4 pounds cheaper. He was $3 or $4 cheaper. And all of a sudden you're like, and guess what? As an athlete, you miss a tackle, you miss a block, you miss a catch, and you don't get to sit and cry. Get back up and go get it again. So I really like athletes. And then I had a day where I was up in Pennsylvania, and I rode with a sales rep. She was a young lady, very nice. And I asked her, she was dialed, like great sales skills. She had everything organized. She was diligent. She followed up. I was like, are you an athlete? She's like, nope. I went, my formula may be wrong. And I said, what do you do when you're not out selling? She goes, well, I play violin. I said, okay. She goes, in the Pennsylvania Orchestra. I'm like, that's another level. Then I started thinking, you know who else has to practice a lot? Musicians. Then I thought through all the people I know in the industry. And I had a gentleman that I knew here in Las Vegas, and he was a drummer. He ended up going on to becoming the government account specialist. So I like people that have great discipline hobbies, either in music or sports, but it requires them to be disciplined because oftentimes nobody's watching and you need to make sure you're kicking your own butt. So that's my litmus test, athletes and musicians.
So self-reflection, drive, all of the above.
All of the above. And if you sat, like if I asked you, if I said, what were all the things that you learned as a football player? And you'd sit there and you'd be like, practice, practice, practice. And you practice for a minute moment when you're actually on the field. If you look at any company and you sit there and you say, how many times, I don't care if you've got outside sales or just counter people, when they answer the phone, they're in the game. Perfect. How often do you practice before you're in the game? I don't. I just pick it up and I wing it. And I tell my customer, you got 2 chances of getting that order filled, slim and none, just like I said a minute ago. But do you ever sit there and say, we need to have a coaching moment? It's what I do, but I realize when people have muscle memory and they're prepared, good Lord, do they give better results. You know, as we sit here and you do your podcasts and things, today, the sound that wasn't working, every one of these things organically helps us get better, but we've got to get challenged to make it happen.
That is a unique thing with sales, is you're always in the game but never learning or never reflecting and never going through a training session. We're always in a game.
Amen. One of the craziest things. So I read an article. It's a simple article. And it said that waitresses at a restaurant, waiters and waitresses, that if they took your order and they did not write anything down, you know the article, if they memorized it and they interacted with you, how would you like your steak cooked? And Michael, how would you like your salad? Would you like croutons? How would you like your salad dressing? And then all of a sudden they walked away and they came back and they followed up with you and they cared. And they made a personal connection. They averaged a 20% bigger tip. So I read the article like you did, and I said, how could I apply this to my sales career? And I went onto a job site and I told the guy, all right, I'm not going to write anything down. I'm going to be connected with this guy. And of course he says, you're going to need to talk to Bill, and Bill's phone number is 264-1153-821, and you need to make sure that his address is down. I'm like, I couldn't remember any of it. So I started going into these job sites and I understand the concept. And I would grab my phone and there's a memos button. And I would walk in, just put it in my pocket, hit memos, and I would record the conversation. Game tape. That is the right answer. And all of a sudden, guess what? Nobody has game tape. When I go out and I do my trainings and I do my coaching moments, the best thing, every sales rep says the same thing. They got the most out of the role play. And I look like a big contractor with a burly beard and everything, but I sit there and I put my feet up and I say, why are you coming in my trailer? And the rep, you can see the ones that walk in and they have no problem. They've done it. They have muscle memory. Then there's the ones that walk in and they're like, hello, Mr. Contractor. And you're like, perfect. Let's build that muscle memory so that you have game tape. And every single time, how often do you get a review? Like you and I get the benefit. When this is done, we get to watch it and see errors we made. And you get to say, I got to correct that next time, and your game gets better. Podcasts get better. Are we all doing that in our life? Or are we just going through and assuming that what we're doing is right because we're never checking the game tape?
I'm sure upon reflection of this episode, if I ever stay in a hotel room with you, I will not leave my toothbrush out. But mate, something that you mentioned previously and something that I do really want to get into, obviously, and a reason I wanted to sit down with you today, apart from your good looks and sense of humor, is your unique positioning, visibility and exposure to the national rental industry, saying that you're on a flight to a different state every week, gaining insights and an inside look into various rental operations, job sites, meeting an array of people. You've mentioned increased interest rates, lower rental rates, increased equipment costs, continuous investment from the Big Five, and Josh recently described the current industry climate as a feeling of cautious optimism. You recommend that everyone here in Las Vegas this week should be targeting and continually seeking a competitive advantage to take their operation to the next level. What correlations have you seen regarding challenges, customer requirements recent nuances that have surprised you or shifted your way of thinking?
Wow. Boy, you just get whammers. Another good question. I would say probably the biggest things that need to happen right now is that the industry needs to reinvest. And I just put out a video and it was back to basics. But the thing is too many people forget the simple fact of how do I reach out to my customers? How do I, Pareto principle, 20-80 rule, how do I reach out to the 20% of my customers that are giving me my business? How do I retain customers? And then the biggest thing is this time of year, started a new year. What are you doing to connect with those customers that got you there? Because if 2024 was a flat year for you and you're not doing anything to either grow, you're losing business. And everybody says, what do you mean? I'm not losing business. You actually are. I tell people this all the time, and it's a fact. You can Google it. Literally 20% of all businesses will cease to exist in 5 years. And everybody's like, well, no, that can't be true. Really? In the United States, go to Sears and go buy something. Go swing by Radio Shack. Let me know how things are going at Toys R Us. And all of a sudden you start seeing, oh my gosh, those were all American icons, and they're gone. And if I would have told somebody 10 years ago, all of Sears will cease to exist, Toys R Us will cease to exist, and so will Radio Shack, people would say I was a charlatan and a fake, and there was no way that would happen. And they're gone. I ask every single person, if we're not going to go the way of the dinosaurs, as a business, as an industry, as an individual company, you have to make marginal gains. And those marginal gains, you have to look at. I call it my MIT. MIT stands for most important task. Each day, what's the most important thing you can work on within your business so that you know that you're making marginal gains? And if that's contacting a customer, resolving aging and AR, reaching out to your customers, checking on your fleet maintenance, recognizing your employees, having an employee barbecue. Like, of all the things you could do, what's the most important thing you can do each day, not each week, each day, so that you know that you're making progress? And as I look at the industry, like you so eloquently put it, it's never been more competitive. They've got too much, and everybody wants to get it on rent. They're now stuck with the higher interest rates because, and this is a terrible storm, too much fleet, too high of interest rates, but then everybody says, you have a choice. You got a choice. You can have it sit in your yard and make nothing, or you can lower your rate. And the second they say you can lower your rate, guess what ends up happening? It affects the entire market. And it's killing us slowly because people aren't investing in their people. Like, it blows my mind. The other day, I can't even make this up. You assume that most people, you're world traveled, you're well known. You assume that most people know what's going on in the world. And the other day, I posted a video, proud of it, got 100,000 views, United Rentals buying H&E equipment. Great video. I had multiple people comment in the video, what is H&E? And I went, wow. And the guy said, I've never heard of it. What is it? And I realized each one of us lives in our own perspective, and we don't understand the global impact, the entire impact of the market, and how the macro affects the industry going all the way down. How the big stuff affects everything else that we do. So if I had to give you one gem, I think each one of us really needs to sit back and take the time. We become crisis managers in the rental industry. Our phone rings and we react. It's what we get paid to do. But if you show up to your business every day and you don't have a plan, you don't have a strategy, you don't have an outcome that you're looking for, you're just renting stuff, you're going to be lost to the companies that show up every day with a plan on how to win. And right now, that's really what companies are starting to find. You can't just be a mom and pop shop that's winging it. literally your competition is realizing they need your market share because they've got too much fleet.
And I think, unfortunately, in a lot of ways, the rules of the game are written, but it's looking at what strengths do I have to best win in this game is the important question that a lot of companies should be asking, especially the independents. What can we do that the big guys can't? Because these are the rules to the game, and serving those who are underserved, which I think is something that Josh Nickel mentioned during one of your conversations.
Absolutely. And that's, I think it's spot on. You will find somebody, and if you find your companies where they're going to be like, look, it was said on the panel today, all these contractors up there, and the guy says, I hate that I have to call a 1-800 number. And the person literally, I am a profile on a green screen. So the guy says, who are we talking to? Can you get me a PO? He goes, that isn't what I want. I want somebody who says, hey, what's going on, Tom? What are you working on this week? He says, I want to be a person. I don't want to be a number. And that niche market, today we had 4 guys up there on the panel. All 4 contractors said the same thing. We don't like that we are no longer treated like people. And you could tell an entire room, 450 different people from the rental industry, and all of them sat there and they all went, like there's been this huge push of do online. Everybody's buying online. Everybody's doing online. And these people are like, we don't want to buy online. It's not the transaction. We need somebody who's a equipment advisor, an equipment coach, an equipment partner. I don't want you to just say, you want a demo saw, order it online, get the stuff you need, there you go. And we walk out and we say, here's your demo saw. And the guy says, I need blades. Well, you didn't order those online. Where back in the day, you showed up to a rental counter and the guy says, what are you cutting? Well, we're cutting brick. You're going to need a diamond blade. Well, we're cutting asphalt. Well, you're going to need an asphalt blade. We're cutting tile. Well, that's a different blade still. And every single one of those, that guy or gal who helped out, you paid for their knowledge and skill. And I think that that's the one thing that's lost. We're not buying slippers where we know our size on Amazon. We need somebody who understands, how do you start that saw? How do you run that trowel? How do you make sure that that compressor is running at the right PSI? And if you don't know those things, you need an expert. And that's where our value is to the market.
Elliot, you've grown quite the social media platform. Over 11,000 followers, hosting the ARA's Shop Talk podcast with Josh Nickel, to today, hosting the ARA Show's Rental X at the Future of Equipment Rental with your session called Stop Taking Orders and Start Building Partnerships. Even to myself, discovering your content on the other side of the world displays this amazing tool, the possibilities of exponential exposure and the opportunities these platforms provide. Mate, how has social media impacted your business, your national and international network, and what are your recommendations to specifically salespeople to successfully leverage this tool and the importance of building an online personal brand?
That's a good one. First, like I said a minute ago, I didn't intend this. So it's one thing if some people wake up and they have a massive level of intent. I woke up and here's what I learned. And it's the true lesson here. I gave with zero intent. And I hate to say it, but you, me, every one of us, we go flipping through TikTok, through Pinterest, through Facebook. And as we flip through the social medias, here's what ends up happening. An advertisement shows up and it turns us off. You flip through it even faster. You hate stuff in your feed. You don't like somebody advertising in your feed. It makes you mad. But yet, if there's somebody out there who does one of 3 things, either entertain me, educate me, or genuinely have me say, wow. So, entertain me, which is comedy, car wrecks, explosions, police chases, whatever it is, you're entertained. Educate. I watch people, they put out a ton of different videos, and the thing is if you ever get pulled over by the police, here's your rights. It's educating people. They don't know what their rights are. And then the last part of that is that you sit there and you go in and you engage people. The problem is a sales pitch is none of those things. So when you go flipping through, you realize that if somebody sits there and says, Hey, let me sell you this bottle of water. It's drinkable. It's in a... Nobody gives a dang. And so I sat there and I said, look, I can promote the living crud out of me. I'm a great salesperson. Nobody wants to be sold, but they want to buy. And so I sat and I said to myself, what can I do for the industry? And I'm like, look, just act like the Red Hot Chili Peppers and just give it away, give it away, give it away now. And I gave away all my stuff. And I actually had a personal friend of mine call me up and he goes, you know, Elliot, you're an idiot. I said, well, thank you. I said, that means a lot coming from you. He goes, no, you really are an idiot. He goes, you have spent tens of thousands of dollars learning to be a great salesperson. I said, I have. He goes, you've read all the books, you've done all the everything. Your knowledge is worth something. I said, I agree. He goes, so you put it up on the internet for free and people don't need to book you and they don't need to have you come out. I said, you're right, they don't. He goes, that's not a good business model, bro. I said, here's the thing. You ever gone to a grocery store and they're giving out free samples? He goes, yeah. I said, you walked over and you grabbed the free sample and you ate it, and 2 seconds later you bought the box. I said, that's my business model. Let people know that it's good and they'll buy the box. And he says, good luck to you. Now the crazy thing is I put out all of my content. If everybody sat and you actually, which I have people, I love it, they say, I binge watched you, which I never thought somebody would say that about me. I'm a 50-year-old guy. I'm not a YouTuber. I'm not a streamer. I'm not any of those things. I'm just a guy who put out content. And somebody said, yeah, the other day, our sales team, we sat down and we had a 3-hour binge watch of all of your videos back to back, and it is epic. And I was like, I might want to do that. Like, I've never sat down and done 3 hours of me. That could be really interesting. And as it was all done, I sat there and I realized what a blessing it is that you can give stuff out to people and they find value in it. And then all of a sudden, my phone has rang, as you stated earlier. I am blessed. I have amazing clients and they're booking me all the time and I get a lot of repeat business. But as much as I want that, I want to help out. My first month in the rental industry, to say it was absolute hell, I quit like 3 times in my first week. And my wife will tell you that. I had a terrible manager. I got a used truck. I got hurt. Like everything that could have went wrong on the job did. And the fact that I'm sitting here with you today is just short of a miracle. But I realize I don't want anybody else to experience like that. I have a big enough why on why I help the industry.
Elliot, taking some inspiration from someone you aspire to, Peter Drucker, is a topic you've highlighted regarding winning sales culture and that culture eats strategy.
For breakfast.
For breakfast. You said too many companies try to save themselves towards profitability. They discourage spending. They hate risk-taking, refuse to invest in new ideas, overly rigid formulas, restrictive radiuses, and limit creativity. You prefer a get-the-deal approach and a winning and innovative sales culture. I think this perfectly links to one of James Clear's concepts, where he stated that in our data-driven world, we tend to overemphasize on the numbers. We undervalue the intangible and aspects we find hard to quantify. We mistakenly think that the factors we can measure are the only factors that matter. And diving into the time capsule, going back in time to 2017, the first video you published on your social media was discussing the concept of high-performance teams and the high-performing teams framework. Elliot, to what extent do you think high-performance decision-making should be made from this intuition and adaptability and getting the deal versus also considering this calculated and data side, the strategy?
All things aside, nicely done. Nicely done. Okay? From 2 guys, nicely done. So the question to unravel there is 2 parts. I understand it as both a sales culture and how to develop a sales culture, and whether or not it's better to let data drive your decisions or instinct drive your decisions. So here's the 2 parts of that. I think data is awesome. The problem with data is too many people think it, and I watch this. Right now in the United States, they have Roush. Go talk to Roush. I don't know if you have Roush in Australia. Go down and I want you to take 5 minutes and talk to Roush. So a lot of companies sign up for Roush, and Roush releases data on what common rates are in the industry. And if you ask Roush, here's the thing. Do you need to stick to Roush? No. It is basically a guideline. And I always tell people, as long as we're heading north, we're doing the right thing. Know the direction you're going. If you go around the mountain, if you go over the bridge or through the river, as long as you're going north, pick your own direction. Sometimes you get a little more muddy. Sometimes you take the high road. But as long as you're growing the business, I watch people. You said it earlier. Your research is phenomenal. You can't save yourself to profitability. And I see companies right now where they think that the single best thing they can do is if I control every lever, then as every lever is controlled, I will control the results. Your job is not to control all the levers. Your job is to encourage the results. And if the levers get a little out of hand, I'm all about it. I will tell you right now, I would rather a salesman come to me and say, hey, Michael, I made a deal. The company said they needed 20 19-foot scissors. Okay. We've got 40 of them sitting in the yard right now. You told me to go find a deal. Uh-huh. Our floor rate is $500. I told the guy I would do them for $450 and free trucking because he said he's going to need them for 6 months. All right. I would rather that rep feel that they have the ability to kill it and bring it back rather than them go out and say that the data says we can't take this deal. And if I own a company and I've got 40 of them sitting in my yard, I'm not going to penalize that rep for going out and hunting. So the data, there was data in that story. There's 40 in the yard. That was a factor in our decision. If there's 20 in the yard and I just put all 20 out at that, it's not the same deal. So you need the data to drive some of the decisions. You just have to use it as a parameter, a rule, rather than a finite straight line that we can't deviate from. You have to be flexible in business. If the person in front of you says, listen, like one of my favorite ones ever, I had a Hispanic contractor. I saw his guys out on a job site. They had 2 little lifts. It was a small job. I looked them up, found out where their office was. Their office was a house. I went to the door. I knocked on the door. A girl said, they're not in the house. No hablan muy inglés. Es in the garage. Walk over, open up the garage door. There's an office in the garage. The guys sat me down. They were sitting in their garage on chairs with suit jackets on. Nice shoes, nice computers. And the guys were like, let's talk about what we can do for business. And I said, you know what? Everybody would say, running the business out of your garage, not smart move. And I took a risk with those guys because I realized what they did, they hadn't built the office yet. But their suits and their shoes mean that they took their ambiance professional. 5 years later, they called me up one day and they ordered 20, bought brand new from Snorkel Extreme. I worked for Snorkel. They called up and they ordered 20 19-foot scissors from me. And I sat there and it made me smirk because I remember when everybody else passed them by because they let the data determine, not the potential. There's no data out there of somebody who dresses nice, who takes it professional. There's nothing that shows how much you care. There's no measure, getting completely off script, that you show up early, you set up your cameras, you put on the right shirt, you put on the right shoes, the noise isn't right in here. You do every one of those things because guess what? It's not that you care for me, you care for your viewers. And people can sniff that out in a heartbeat. You know what there isn't? Data to prove that. So the data is great. It's a great magnetic north, like on a compass. You need to know that data says that's north. How you get there is up to you.
I think this perfectly flows into the human connection, building relationships, and secret number 3, a focus on building trust. During my chat with Josh Nickel, he characterized rental perfectly as a relationship business, but going even further by stating that it's a long-term relationship business. He said that whenever you're a customer of Elliot, it doesn't feel like he's selling ice to an Eskimo. He is someone who is approaching the situation to solve problems, create a connection, and looks to build long-term relationships. You've mentioned the compounding effect of continued relationships and weekly customers developing into lifelong friendships. Elliot, sales reps are always looking to maximize efficiencies, minimize, unfortunately, what some regard as lost time spent with customers, not wanting to spend the extra 30 minutes to an hour, but they're all seeking customer loyalty. And you shared an amazing stat that said 92% of salespeople give up after 4 calls, but on average, 80% of new prospects say no 4 times before they say yes. Elliot, how have you developed your customer-centric and relationship-focused approach to gaining a long-term and loyal customer base?
That trust element. So I had one, and I know that you have a lot of people that you know in the industry. I sat down one day, and there was a business owner, and I realized every single day that he went to business, he was there from 5 o'clock in the morning till 7 o'clock at night, 14-hour days. And he came in on Saturday. And I went in one day, and I was a salesman, and I said, hey, I want to land your business. And he said, yeah, a lot of salespeople come by, they'll leave me a card, whatever. And I said, look, I know you're busy. When's the best time to see you? He goes, I don't have time. I got too much going on. And I was driving by his office one night, 5:30, and I saw his vehicle was the only one in the parking lot. And I pulled in, and I walked over, and I opened the door, and I walked in, and I said, hey. And he goes, what are you doing here working so late? I said, I'm just like you. He goes, what do you mean? I said, I got a family to feed. I said, you show up every day. You are more married to your company than you are to your own family at times because of how bad you want to provide for your family and provide to all the families that are part of your company. He goes, that's right. I said, so I realize you don't trust me because I haven't proven to you that I'm worthy with something that feeds all these families. I said, I wouldn't trust me either because you don't know me. I said, I like seeing your truck here tonight. I like knowing that you work as hard as I work. And I walked out and I got in my truck and I left. 2 days later, he called me and he says, we need to have a talk. Nobody wanted that account, and it turned out to be one of my absolute best accounts because that guy was not a very nice guy. He defended his company, defended his people to his dying day. And I say that because too many people, I think, are frivolous with trust. I think that they don't realize that every one of us gets hurt. Every one of us has gotten burned, has put our everything. Right now, there's people in the rental industry that said, look, this company, we'll just say it, H&E, because it's something that's hot, but name the company. I was loyal to them for 10 years. This was my forever home. And now my trust is broken. Don Ahern, love the guy. He would tell every single person, I will never sell this business. And if I did sell it, it would never be to United Rentals. And then we all got the notification, and we felt our trust was broken. And I realized, here's the thing, I can't change the world. You can't change the world. But if you don't screw people over on their trust, be honest with them. If you can't do it, don't do it. If it's not going to happen, just be honest. And if you're building trust with people, it's one of the most valuable currencies right now because everybody has had their trust compromised. And in sales, I realize there's times I go out, one of my best sales transactions ever. The guy called me up. He said, do you have the equipment? I said, no. I said, but I'll tell you right now, you can trust me that I'll find it. He goes, well, no, I'll find it. I said, your time is too valuable. I said, I will call all of my competitors and I will find you the piece of equipment. who are your top companies that you work with besides me? He goes, Elliot, you're number one, but I do a little bit of work with this company and that company. I called the other two. I found him the equipment. And it killed me to send the PO to my competitor. The good thing that came about from that is, he literally said, is that the format you send all your POs? I said, yep. He filled them all in and sent them to me for years going forward. And it sped up my process. But I realized my customers all trusted me. Seeing a customer that I had not sold to for 6 years, to this day, he says, Elliot, you're the man. You know, I trust you. And I know his family. I know his daughter. I know his daughter's medical history. I know everything. And I haven't talked to him in 5 years. That was the type of relationships and trust I built. And I'll tell you right now, price was rarely a factor.
Elliot, you've mastered secret number 6, become a master communicator. And secret number 7, understand your audience. And something that Josh Nichols shared with me is that something that makes Elliot uniquely effective is his ability to be a chameleon of a situation. He can go straight from a job site to a boardroom full of executives, talk the lingo to them respectively. Elliot has a perfect mix of professionalism and boots on the ground experience. You don't often see someone who can talk to a group of executives and contractors because they're two different worlds, but Elliot bridges this gap in a unique kind of way.
Yeah. I'll give you a great one. It's not about me. So you're going to sit down here and you're going to do a podcast with Anthony Durante. And you're going to tell Anthony Durante, you're going to say, hey man, Elliot said that he was in New York City and Elliot got to go out selling with Stephen Durante. We jumped in the truck and we drove around Manhattan and Queens selling. You want to talk about putting two lions in a cage together. New York had no chance. And I had an amazing day with Anthony. It was funny because I'm always willing to learn. And we go out, we go call on a job site. I've got my safety vest. I even brought my safety vest to the dang show this week. Okay, there's no construction going on at the show, but I've got my safety vest. And I put on my safety vest and I put on my hard hat. We call on a job site. And we get out and Stephen says, we need to go see this guy at his office. And Stephen kicks off his boots, slips on dress shoes, buttons up his shirt, and puts on a suit jacket. And I looked over at Stephen, I'm like, what the hell is that? He goes, dress for the audience in front of you. He goes, if I go into the business owner with a hard hat, a vest, or messed up hairs and dirty boots, he's going to treat me like a contractor, and I'm not going to get the time of day. If he sees that I'm wearing polished shoes, that I'm wearing a suit jacket, and that my hair looks right, he will see me as the person I am, not the person he assumes I am. And I went, wow. And it's kind of crazy because Stephen took it to a next level. But just like Josh said, you have to go in a room and you have to be able to look at somebody and say, look, the presentation that I do on stage is not the same one that I did in a hotel room this morning, which is not the same one when I step into a contractor's trailer. And you have to judge your audience and know what their communication style is. And somebody once told me, they said, watch this. If I took you and shipped you to New York, where they're super fast talking New Yorkers and they don't have a New York minute, and I'm going to tell you right now, we got to get stuff going, and you got to hit the ground or running, and if we ain't got to get out of there, we got to boogie every day. You got to jump in your truck, make sure you ain't double parked, and make sure that you go out and you get the deal, because if you ain't getting the deal, you're not with it. Wow. Then I turn around and I roll up to Mississippi. Well, I'm going to tell y'all that those fast talkers up there in New York, we don't have a need for them. And on the flip side, you take that slow talker and you put him in New York, and the guy's like, oh my gosh, I'm going to fall asleep before he finishes this sentence. If you cannot talk to people where they're at and resonate with them and communicate with them, it's one of the easiest ways to show you don't care. And I've learned it. I've sat there and I've done sales in Mississippi, and in the following week, I was in New York. I've been in extremely liberal places and extremely conservative places. If you can't chameleon a little bit to the people in front of you, everybody wants somebody who is like them or how they would like to be. They see something and like, man, I want to be like that guy or that girl. But the thing is if they can't resonate and connect with you, you'll quickly lose your audience.
I had a very similar situation going around Manhattan with Steve Durante.
Whoa!
It was like watching Ronald McDonald flipping burgers on the griddle, absolutely in his element. Elliot, at the beginning of your sales journey, you put yourself in a sink or swim environment, and what you described as having a sense of panic in your blood, being in 100% commission, removing the feeling of a safety net or a pillow to fall back on, forcing you to develop, increase your discipline, requiring a willingness to learn, and needing to continuously improve. You always emphasize your attitude to gratitude, that you're addicted to your passions, not distractions. Prioritizing 4 a.m. wake-ups on Sundays to record, edit, schedule prior to heading out for the day to maximize time spent with your wife and daughter, which really displays to me your unwavering commitment to not only the industry, but your personal relationships and your approach to life.
Yeah.
Elliot, you wrote down and manifested after first meeting Josh Nickel at Con Expo that one day you would speak at an ARA show, to literally present day, turning that vision, aspiration and goal into a reality. Elliot, reflecting here today in 2025 on the journey that's been and excitement for the future, how do you define success and how do you incorporate all of these amazing perspectives into your everyday life?
I love how well prepared you are. It is a different level. You're gonna realize one day that your preparedness is a superpower because it resonates with people and it makes them feel significant. And we all want to be significant. I would tell you that the level of dedication that it takes, too many people miss. And I respect your dedication. I literally, and you said it perfectly, had a day where I was at Con Expo in 2023, spring of 2023. Actually, 2 years ago this month. And I was at a presentation. I'm always willing to learn. And I'm taking notes. I'm sitting front row. And Josh Nichols was the mediator. He was the guy running the gig. And he's like, I work for the ARA, and this is what I do, and I'm setting up these contractors, and I'm setting up these speakers. And I ran up to him, and I said to him, hey, Josh, I'm Elliot. You should look at me for being one of your speakers. And Josh, being very polite, said, yeah. We book out our speakers, well in advance. We kind of know everybody that we need. But yeah, if things change, and I realized I wasn't there. And it wasn't against Josh. It wasn't against the ARA. I wasn't there. And I think that's something that's very hard for people to recognize, is they try to level up before they have the respected skills that they need. They sit there and you can't just show up to the ARA. You just can't show up to the family's what I'm giving the speech. You got to prepare for it. You got to be ready for it. And I realized when I talked to Josh, I am blessed, grateful that Josh told me no. Because if he would have told me yes, I might have not been as pissed off and has tried as hard as I did. And there's something to be said for that. You got to realize that the coaches you hated the most taught you the most. And so I sat there and I realized when it was all done and I walked home and I went to the hotel and I sat there and I was like, man, I am pissed at Josh. And I said to myself, I'm grateful that somebody was kind enough to tell me, not yet. Keep going. And I woke up every day, that 4 a.m. that you mentioned, and I ground. I don't know a lot of people that are recording videos at 4 a.m. every morning. I don't know a lot of people that put in what I put in. Maybe you know it. Editing videos at stupid hours. On a flight, just edit, and you sit there and you grind away at it and you say, I trust. Faith is a very powerful emotion. I have faith that one day someone will see how hard I'm working. And Josh sat there and he said to me, he gave me one of the best compliments I ever got. He said, you know, Elliot, a lot of people have tried to do the ARA. I said, I know. He goes, and I'll tell you what ends up happening. He goes, almost every one of them fails because they're not committed. I said, dude, I'm as committed. He says, I get it. I said, I'm as committed as it gets. And now that I sit back and I get the luxury of saying that I got to be part of the ARA Shop Talk podcast, I got the honor of being on your podcast, and it's an honor for me. I got the honor of standing on the Future of Equipment Rental stage and being the opening speaker. I've gotten the honor of presenting at international conferences. And today I had the honor of somebody from France saying, would you travel to Europe to train us in sales? And I realized that if you do the right things and you're focused, not distracted, if you're focused on what you want, with the right amount of leverage, you can move heaven and earth. The problem is too many people waste time on stupid, infantile, non-important things. And the last part of that is reinvest in yourself at least 2 to 3 times a year. And when I say reinvest, maybe that's reading a book to you. I go to Tony Robbins. I spent big money going to Tony Robbins' Date with Destiny. I'm spending money going to Tony Robbins' Business Mastery, doing Grant Cardone, doing whatever it is out there. I think that there is a master level of people out there that are putting out great content like you. And I think that if you're not willing to learn, your stagnation will be your damnation.
I think this goes back to your MIT rule and also a bit of a saying from Australia, and mind my French, is the 7 Ps, that piss poor preparation provides piss poor performance.
Yes, it does.
So, Elliot, this has been an amazing conversation.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming on. Thank you for your time during your show. Congratulations once again on today. Enjoy Las Vegas, enjoy 2025, and I'm looking forward to seeing you internationally now in France and going through Europe.
Hey, don't forget about Australia. I'm not afraid to go down under. I will go down to Australia. You guys give me a call. I will come down there and hang out. Send me an invite.
I'm looking forward to it. Elliot, thank you for coming on the Rental Journal.
Outstanding, brother. Thank you, Michael.